April 29th, 1945. Dachau, Germany, 11:15 in the morning. Private John Lee, 22 years old, from Tulsa, Oklahoma, was standing inside the gates of a place he would never be able to forget. He'd been in the army for 2 years, fought in Sicily, fought in Italy, fought across France. He'd seen men die. He'd killed men. He thought he knew what war looked like. He was wrong. The smell hit them before they got through the gate, sweet and rotten and chemical, like nothing any of them had ever smelled. Some men gagged. Some pulled their shirts over their faces. It didn't help. Then the rail cars, 39 of them, sitting on the tracks just inside the perimeter. Lee walked up to the first one. The door was open. Bodies, stacked. Not piled, stacked deliberately, like cordwood. Men, women, children, skeletal. Mouths open, eyes open, flies everywhere. Later, the army would estimate over 2,000 corpses in those cars alone, loaded onto a train and left to die. Lee walked past the rail cars and into the camp. The living were worse than the dead. 30,000 prisoners still alive inside Dachau. Walking skeletons in striped rags. Men who weighed 80 pounds. Men whose ribs you could count from across the yard. Some tried to walk toward the Americans. Their legs buckled. They crawled. They reached out with hands that were just bones covered in skin. Lee saw a man sitting against a wall, not moving. He thought the man was dead. Then the man blinked, slowly, like even blinking took more energy than he had. Water. Lee gave him his canteen. The man's hands were shaking too badly to hold it. Lee held it to his lips. He saw the gas chambers. Concrete rooms with shower heads that didn't produce water. Scratch marks on the walls. Fingernail marks carved into concrete by people trying to claw their way out. He saw the crematoriums, ovens still containing human remains. The machinery of mass murder, industrial, efficient, maintained with the precision of a factory. And in the southwest corner of the camp, standing in a group, hands raised, 50 SS guards, surrendering. Lee looked at the guards, then at the bodies in the rail cars, then at the skeletal man he'd just given water to, then back at the guards. Something broke inside him. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe. We tell the World War II stories that don't have easy answers, the ones that force us to confront the hardest questions about war, justice, and what it means to be human. The 45th Infantry Division, the Thunderbirds, farm boys from Oklahoma, Colorado, New Mexico, men who grew up hunting deer and going to church on Sundays and believing America was the good guy. They'd been fighting for 2 years. Sicily, Anzio, southern France, Germany. They thought they'd seen everything war could show them. Nobody told them what they were walking into at Dachau. The intelligence reports mentioned political prisoners, possibly some forced laborers. Nobody could have prepared them for the reality. Lieutenant Colonel Felix Sparks, 30 years old, commanding the 3rd Battalion of the 157th Infantry Regiment, described the approach in a recorded interview years later. His voice was steady but slow, the voice of a man choosing each word carefully. We came around a bend in the road and there was a rail siding, boxcars. The doors were open. Sergeant Walsh went first. He got about 10 feet from the first car and stopped. Just stopped. I walked up behind him and looked. I'd seen dead men before, thousands, but these weren't soldiers. These were civilians, women, children, stacked in cattle cars. The soldiers moved through the camp, saw the living skeletons, saw the gas chambers, saw the ovens, saw children's shoes piled in a warehouse. Then they found the SS guards, about 50 of them, standing near the coal yard, hands up, surrendering, expecting to be processed, fed, protected. The Geneva Convention guaranteed it. Some of the guards were young, others were career SS. One of them was smiling, not a nervous smile, the bland smile of a man who expected everything to work out. Lee raised his rifle. He didn't think about it, didn't plan it, didn't consider the Geneva Convention. He raised his rifle and fired. The guard with the smile dropped. Then another soldier fired. Then another. Then a machine gun opened up. Someone had set up a .30 caliber on a wall. The guards screamed. Some tried to run. They were cut down. Some begged. They were shot anyway. It lasted less than 5 minutes. When it was over, every SS guard was dead. Not all the Americans participated. Some stood back, frozen. Some tried to stop it. Lieutenant Colonel Sparks heard the gunfire, ran to the coal yard, physically threw himself between his soldiers and the remaining guards, grabbed a rifle, screamed, "Cease fire!" fired his pistol into the air. The killing stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. Within hours, the report traveled up the chain. War crime. American soldiers had executed surrendered prisoners of war. The Inspector General's office wanted a full investigation. Charges, court-martials. The Judge Advocate General agreed. This was murder. There had to be consequences. Even Eisenhower weighed in. This cannot be covered up. We cannot become what we're fighting against. The case landed on Patton's desk. Patton had been to Dachau himself that day, arrived in the afternoon, walked the same path his soldiers had walked, saw the same rail cars, the same barracks, the same ovens, the same survivors. He'd walked into a barracks and lasted about 40 seconds before he went outside and vomited. George S. Patton, the man who had fought in 2 world wars, who had seen men burn and bleed and die in every way the human body can be destroyed. Dachau made him sick. Now he sat at his desk reading a report that said his soldiers had committed a war crime at the same camp. The pressure was clear. Prosecute, punish, make an example. Patton sat with it for 2 days, read every witness statement, looked at every photograph. Then he wrote his response. I have investigated the allegations. The evidence is inconclusive. During the liberation of the camp, conditions were chaotic. Thousands of prisoners were present. Sporadic gunfire was reported from multiple directions. It is impossible to determine with certainty which deaths resulted from combat and which did not. It was technically true. It was also deliberately misleading. He knew what had happened. He'd read the statements, but he went further. I find the emotional and psychological state of soldiers who had just witnessed the conditions at Dachau to be a significant mitigating factor. These men walked into a facility containing evidence of crimes so vast that temporary impairment of judgment is not merely possible, but expected. Then the key paragraph. I will not court-martial American soldiers for killing SS guards at a death camp. If that makes me complicit, I accept the responsibility. But I will not destroy the lives of men who responded with human rage to inhuman atrocity. And I will not pretend that any man in this army, myself included, can say with certainty that he would have acted differently in their place. Myself included. That was the blade. Patton was saying he might have pulled the trigger too. He was putting himself in the same moral category as the privates who fired their rifles in the coal yard. The Inspector General's office was furious. This was obstruction, a cover-up. A memo was drafted arguing for Patton's removal. Then something happened. Nothing. People at the highest levels started asking uncomfortable questions, not about the soldiers, about the trial. What would a court-martial look like? American soldiers on the stand describing what they saw at Dachau? defense attorneys putting Holocaust survivors as witnesses, photographs of gas chambers and mass graves shown to a jury. If the soldiers were convicted, America would look like a nation that valued the lives of SS death camp operators over its own veterans. If acquitted, it would establish that war crimes were acceptable under emotional circumstances. Either way, catastrophe. The investigation quietly died, filed away, classified, marked inconclusive. The soldiers who pulled the triggers were never charged. Private Lee gave an interview in 1986. He was 63, living in Tulsa, a plumber, married, 3 kids. "I know what we did was wrong. Legally, by the rules. I've known it for 41 years. He paused. But I also know what I saw that morning. 2,000 bodies stacked in trains. Men who weighed less than my 12-year-old daughter. A room where they gassed people. An oven with human bones still in it. And then I saw the men who did it, standing there, hands up, smiling, expecting us to protect them." His voice dropped. "I'm not going to tell you I'd do it differently. I've thought about it every day for 41 years, and I still don't know." Lieutenant Colonel Sparks, the man who tried to stop it, gave his own account. "What my men did was wrong. It was a crime. I tried to stop it and I partially succeeded. But my soldiers were not criminals. They were young men who had just experienced the most devastating psychological shock of their lives. I don't excuse it. I don't defend it, but I understand it." In his private diary, Patton wrote one paragraph about it, dated May 2, 1945. "I cannot condemn men for doing in passion what the world should have done in policy years ago. The camps should never have been built. The ovens should never have been lit. If we had acted sooner, none of this would have happened. My soldiers are not responsible for Dachau. The world is." The Dachau executions remain one of the most debated incidents of the war, not because anyone defends the SS guards, because it forces us to confront a truth that has no comfortable answer. War creates situations where all choices are wrong, where law and justice point in opposite directions, where the right thing and the legal thing stand on different sides of a line that nobody drew. Patton understood that. He chose his soldiers over the law. He believed what they did was wrong. He also believed punishing them would be worse. Both of those things were true at the same time. That's the part that makes it hard. If you had been in Patton's position, would you have prosecuted your own soldiers, or would you have done what he did? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more World War II stories that don't have easy answers,